Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Rentrak and TVNewsCheck panel discussion, Broadcast TV Station Group Heads on the Big Picture. My name is Steve Stoltz, and I'm the Director of Sales at TVNewsCheck.com. We will begin shortly, but first I'd like to invite you all to a cocktail reception immediately following this and right here in the Fontaine Ballroom. And with that, I'd like to thank the following sponsors: Rentrak, Bill Livick, Kathy Hetzel, and Steve Walsh, and also Varia Living, Paul Sestari, Michael Snyder, and Michael Winokur. And now, I'd like to introduce you to the founder and editor of TVNewsCheck, Harry Jessell.
Thank you, Steve. The theme of our convention is beyond disruption, and I don't really get that because I think we're never beyond disruption. In media, particularly television, disruption has been a way of life for the last 35 years. It's always something new. YouTube, Facebook, Netflix, Groupon, Twitter, Instagram, it never seems to stop, and these things come along and all these executives here have to think they have to react to it in some way anyway. But I think our panelists are more experienced at disruption than most media executives. That's because they're broadcasters, heads of TV station groups. They all came of age in the business when satellite and cable was really disrupting the television business far more than the internet and all these digital media have done so far. So they really know disruption. They've lived with it their entire lives. And so we're going to talk about disruption a little bit. But first, let me introduce my panel. And on my immediate left here is Deb McDermott. She's CEO of Young Broadcasting, owner of 10 TV stations, including one in San Francisco and one in Nashville. Next to her is Bill Hoffman of Cox, Executive Vice President of Cox Media Group. He oversees 15 television stations and 86 radio stations, a duty he just took on fairly recently, correct? The radio side. Wow. It's a whole nother world. And then finally, Brian Lawler at the end there. He's with EW Scripps, charged with managing 19 stations in 13 markets. Scripps' faith in broadcasting is so great, they just dropped $212 million 2 years ago to buy the McGraw-Hill stations. So some people still believe in broadcasting, amen. Right? There you go, amen. We expected a fourth panelist, Emily Barr, the new president of Post Newsweek stations, but a family emergency has kept her away from Miami. We wish her the best. So let's start talking. Let's start by talking about the broadcasting business. This year was a great year, or 2012 was a great year with all the political money flowing in. According to one researcher, Matrix Solutions, total revenue rose by nearly 20%, again on the backs of that political spending. And core, everything other than with the political taken out, was up 5%. But let's start with Deb here. What's going to happen in 2013 with all that, without the political and auto drive in the industry? What kind of year can we expect?
I think, we've heard industry executives saying anywhere from, 2 to 4%. I'm guessing it's going to be more on the 4% side for the core. Then digital, if you put digital on the side of that, it depends on how far along companies are in the development of digital, but, that growth could be anywhere from 25 to 75%.
But that's still a very small part of the pie, right?
It is, but it's growing. I mean, I think the goal is that to get it up to 7 to 10% of core, and it depends on where you are in that.
Well, you talk about core being up, but what about overall? I mean, it's just sort of the nature of the beast. Could you explain why the odd, even peculiarities of this business, where 1 year's up, 1 year's down?
Well, with all the political coming in, it pushes out local and national, the core, and that growth isn't as strong as it normally would be. We had an unusual year last year because auto grew so, the growth in auto was 20 plus, and it was really an incredible year for auto. This year, auto, we think we're going to be, 6-7%, maybe 6 to 8%, somewhere in that range. December was an all-time high for auto sales, I guess since December of 2007. And, it could be very, up in the $15 million range in number of cars sold. So if we get that, we'll get some good growth, but not the growth we've had.
What about you, Bill? What do you see for 2013?
I think Deb is really around the number, I think, on core, depending on what your geography is across the country. I don't think it's going to be any higher than that, Harry. I think a lot of people are probably a little bit more conservative and thinking in the 2 zone, but 4 will probably happen in some places. I think, just tapping back into that, the automotive situation, which was so healthy for most of us last year, I think something also happened that makes you feel a little bit bullish on where core is going. After the reset that we had, and automotive went away, automotive was the category that lived inside our most valuable inventory, our news blocks, where we have our highest local average unit rates. And it was such a tough time to get back from automotive going way back, because it used to be, depending on the station, could have been anywhere from 25 to maybe as high, if you had a dominant rating position, 30% as a category of your revenue. But great sales staffs from all of our companies and in the room did a great job of getting into new category development and find advertisers that saw the value in news placement. So we've got a little momentum right now as far as who's going to be in those important occupancy seats in our television station besides just automotive. That was a hard thing we went through that really left us in a better place.
Brian, what's beyond auto and political? I mean, what do you see as a category that might light up in 2013 that's going to help us?
Well, I think a lot of it comes back to our ability to develop new business inside of our communities. And so, one of the areas that we really focus on where we think we can have a lot of impact is on the service category, which may mean different things to different companies. But for us, that's about the services that are provided in a local market. It could be attorneys, it could be medical, it could be financial. And so there's been a lot of strength in that the last couple of years. And the beauty is that isn't always, big box retailers. It's folks that, are locally based, where we can have a relationship with the owner, where we can have, a legitimate conversation about brand. We can be part of the conversation to build a campaign and then be there to make adjustments and find out how successful campaigns are and reinvest. So, like these guys, I think geography will play part of it. And there's still some places that post-2009, the real estate was slow to come back, but we're starting to see that in Florida. In fact, I was reading one of Bill's papers this morning up in Palm Beach, and the cover front page talks about the fact that condo sales are soaring as a result of a lot less inventory on the market. And so, we're vested in Arizona and Phoenix and in Florida, and we see the housing category come back. With that really drives services and it drives retail as well. So I think in some places geography will drive the influence, but like both of these guys, we feel really good still about the continuation of automotive and the success they had last year. It's a financially healthy category, and as Deb said, I think they're starting to look at 15 million plus vehicles. There's 120 new models that were just introduced for this year. They've got to be marketed and sold. So
I think the NADA number was 15.4, and if they do that, I think
that'd
that
be
is
wonderful.
7%.
It's been a while.
Good year
Yep.
for everybody.
Also, I think we're seeing anticipate telco being up a little bit this year. That's pretty much coming in nationally. But locally, healthcare, there's some good healthcare stuff we anticipate this year with the Obamacare and stuff happening there. And healthcare is for us, and I think for most people, is local. And that's been a really, really good category. We anticipate that being strong too.
All right, and the great thing about an odd number year, it's always followed by an even number year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That means the political come back and everything.
We'll start talking about that next month.
Well,
Yeah, there you go.
but
Well,
one
actually, they
thing-
were talking about the 2016 election. Clinton and Obama were talking about that already.
Well, and I think there's something interesting about political that could happen this year with, the gun issues. We have immigration issues. I was thinking there was one other, but
Well, I
probably
think the
healthcare.
healthcare also.
Yeah.
We expect some
You know,
good political
there
spending
could
this
be,
year.
There could be some good political
Yep.
spending out there. You know, last year was unprecedented in the amount of money that came in, and you know, maybe there'll be quite a bit more than what we normally would have in an off-year election. So.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Well, let's get to our theme, which is disruption. I was at the CES show. I don't know if any of you make it out to Vegas. Big stories again, mobile phones, smartphones, which I learned that 65% of the usage of a smartphone is for non-communicative purposes, like games and I don't know what else, people, GPS, things like this. But anyway, those were the big stories. And one of the broadcasting industry's response to the mobile is what's called mobile DTV, which is unique to broadcasting. Bill, could you tell us a little bit about mobile DTV and where you are with that?
Well, mobile is getting to conjure up all kinds of different responses as far as how you operationalize what mobile is going to mean to the individual, to the consumer. For us as broadcasters, we think more in the context of what's going on with ATCS, what's going on with Pearl, what's going on with the Mobile Coalition venture. And you think about how old is this? Because some people have the opinion, Harry, it's not moving fast enough. What's slowing this down? But this is a very complicated thing that we're choring with right now. We had to get the technology the right way.
Let me interrupt you. People in the room may not know what it is. Could you just sort of describe what it is real quick?
In simple terms, we want to enable consumers to have a device, if it's a handset or if it's a tablet, to be able to consider those TVs. And all you're really doing at the end of the day is you're taking a signal across the air, right into your handset or into your tablet. And it's an extension of free over-the-air television system. It's a one-to-many release of a simulcast, and that's an important element of this too. Just a simulcast over your air, and we think there's an economic model there twofold. We think that people, at the end of the day, will pay for the mobility, to having that outside the home, inside the home, but it's mobile. Wherever you are, whenever you want it, you have it. We also think that there's something to be there, yet non-developed, but we see a value opportunity, is that you'll be able to get data on who the user is. And I think all of us in the room who are broadcasters have been strained with the unmeasured audience that's out there as technology continues to leap, and an inability to keep up with it as far as measurability. And that connection, as we all know, ultimately leads to how we can monetize it.
Well, okay, but you know, we have been talking about it for several years, and what are the big obstacles? What do we have to get past to get this to consumers?
Want to take that, or you want me to keep
Sure.
going?
Yeah, you know, I think that,
I wanna hog it.
you know, first you had to develop the standard, and so that, you're right, Harry, it probably goes back about 3 years. And I think what's unique about this is we're talking about coming off of a television antenna and being able to stream, as Bill said, one-to-many, where, you know, a singular stream is going out and covering the whole DMA that a television station may serve. So that signal may go 75, 100, 100 plus miles. So it's incredibly efficient in that it's not coming off of cell towers, it's not, you know, bogging down and utilizing cell space, it's not using minutes on phones. So
You probably want to say that again, because that's a real hang-up with that option, is because chewing up the cell minutes with a lot of the telcos' point of view on how this goes, that is a huge thing. We all go to many events. I was at the BCS championship. I could not get through to anybody. Everything was clogged. I couldn't text, I couldn't email, I couldn't call. It was totally shut down.
well, and you think about like the presidential inaugural that
Same.
went on last week, you have 800,000 people on the lawn, right? And if they're all trying to get the video, I mean, people are miles back. And so, you know, they don't get to see much, but, you know, if they're all using cell towers, they're immediately going to crash them. So being able to come off of a television antenna and be able to receive a clean, crisp HD television signal that they can watch is very efficient. So first you had to build the standard, you know, the technology
That happened
to be able
pretty
to.
quickly. I mean,
well, Yeah, it did. Then it became, where were you going to get the programming from? And that began, probably a year's worth of discussion with our network partners. And NBC and Fox, to their credit, saw a vision, that were very proactive, and joined a group of broadcast companies that were willing to invest. And then it was about, quite frankly, a little bit of a chicken and the egg. Are you going to light up your signals, or before there's chips in phones or ancillary devices that allow those phones to be able to receive, or does somebody build the chips, put them in, and then we light up our signals? And then finding, trying to find partners, Samsung, LG, others that were willing to create the product. And then there were a lot of conversations to be had with mobile carriers also about, would these chips be in the phones? Would they be, how would they be paid for? And so I think Bill outlined a little bit of the business models, but it's been a process.
And that's where we are now.
Well,
we're still having those conversations.
Well, yeah, I would certainly, the good news is we're still having the conversations. The better news is that we've got 70-something markets where there's television stations lit up. There's devices on the market right now that you can buy through Metro PCS and others, which phones with chips in them that automatically are live televisions for you. With this holiday season, there was the introduced of some dongles and other things for your iPhones to be able to, I wish I had brought mine, but I can literally just plug it in here. I put up about a 2 or 3 inch antenna, and boom, I'm receiving live television. And again, right now, there's many television stations, primarily NBCs and Foxes, that we have a simulcast of your primary television signal. So it has taken a while, but this is a massive undertaking through content providers, technology, cell carriers, manufacturers, television broadcasters, rights owners. But 3 years in, quite frankly, I think we've made an incredible amount of progress.
And Harry, great points all made. If you switch it over on the telco side, G1 was 1978, 35 years later. We've got G4 happening. So the progress and the way we've been working together, I think, has been terrific. And we're doing all this while we're putting up with the breakneck speed of changing technology. It's not easy.
Well, another play that the broadcasters could make to make sure that they're part of the mobile and the tablet world is to start streaming their programming, what your news and other syndicated programming network. If you could get that on the web, you could, be an alternative to the mobile DTV, but a way for people to get, their favorite TV stations. Deb, why isn't that happening? Why aren't more TV stations streaming their signals just like they broadcast them?
First of all, we have to work through all the content copyright issues, but we are actually doing this in a couple of our markets, one primarily in San Francisco right now. We've got a D2 channel. We do a lot of news on that station. We're going to begin streaming that so that we have something, mobile that people can access on the web. On the web, you still have the if too many people are trying to get on at the same time, you're going to have the, you're going to have the pipe problem, enough people getting on. But, I think that the companies who have participated in this development have done a good job. That there's, we're all kind of wanting to jump in it as quickly as we can, but it does take time and patience.
Bill, do you see the day where the networks would allow you to do that, take that programming, just as they're apparently going to allow you to do that for mobile DTV? Do you see them saying, okay, we're your partners, keep the package together, you can stream it, and simulcast on the web? Do you see that day ever happening?
Well, from my perspective, the point of view would be that there's a common sense appeal there because it's going to impact positively their own stations just like it's going to positively impact us. We know that there's more engagement with our television stations than ever before through the on-air, through mobile, through web. The big trick right now is monetization, and I want to believe that there's going to be smart conversations and we can coalesce around this and find out a path that everybody agrees to, and we can keep the ecosystem robust for all of us. That's what I want to believe.
I would say those smart conversations are happening right now. And there's conversations between station groups and networks and affiliate groups and networks about the fact that we are, as affiliates, purchasing the exclusive right of distributing product in our markets, and we believe they have the right. We have the right. I think networks also believe, and we're paying for it through our affiliations and through sharing retrans and other revenue streams. And so I
think that day will come
sooner than later.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Deb? I mean,
Well, I'm hoping sooner
Sooner rather than later?
They, some places we have been effective, as he says, but, you know, the networks there's still discussion on that part.
well, in the meantime, you can, as you're doing in San Francisco, you
Right.
can create channels where you're substituting
Right.
other programming. You put your
Right.
local news and you can substitute other programming that you
Yeah.
can get the rights for.
Exactly.
I mean, does that interest you guys? Something like that?
You know, there's a part of this, Harry, that just because you can, do you want to do it?
Right.
And you look at the workflow that's going in newsrooms right now, and where you want to put your assets and where you want to put your resources, and how you get that play out to happen. Is that something that you think is a good place or not? Can you monetize it or not?
Right.
I think that's for each and individual station to really think about if that's an in-between step before we have.
Well, we'll see how Deb does in San Francisco. And
You also, through all of this, we got to think about the consumer experience. Just because we know how to do broadcast well, but that's not the way people are consuming a lot of products on digital devices. And so, you know, putting a newscast up and, you know, for people to sit and watch on the web is actually a pretty crummy experience. You know, we don't have the rights to, you know, sports, so you got to black out the sports. You don't have the rights to a lot of the commercials that are sold on broadcast, so a simulcast isn't clean. So, you know, it winds up being a choppy experience. And, you know, people come to digital for the information they want to dig deeper. And so just, you know, we will make a major mistake if we just take what we know how to do as broadcasters and think that that's the way it should be distributed on every platform.
And I agree with him because what we have to do, it's all about the content. It's all about what we think is going to be viewed, and then what actually does get viewed, and how it appears on there. And so if you think there's a business model there, you'll have, you know, we have all this content coming into our stations now, and then we have, you know, we have to produce it for different formats, and we have to look at how it fits on different, you know, Facebook and Twitter and everything. So if you're doing a D2 channel that is custom and not just a simulcast, you're going to make sure that it is something that is marketable and has value to you know, your viewers out there who are going to be accessing it.
well, if you do not do it, somebody else may. There's some people that believe that using the cable compulsory license, they can put broadcast signals, and people have tried, and so far the courts have told them no.
That's right.
On another, and then there's Aereo, which has some kind of Rube Goldberg contraption they've convinced a judge may not violate anybody's copyright because it's mini antennas. How big a threat do you think Aereo is to your business, Bill?
I think it's tremendously threatening. I mean, our whole ecosystem is set up with DMA based, that there's rights fees for syndicated shows, and it's part of our business model. And to have something come in and have no retrans, no copyright fees, and just be a pass-through without paying for any of the content, you know, we look at that as just piracy.
Mm-hmm. Brian, any comment?
Yeah, look, I think the innovation of the technology is important, and I think we want to be in a business that continues to improve its efficiency and innovate. But to Bill's point, you know, we're content creators. We spend millions of dollars a year creating content, and we, with all of our other relationships, are paid for that content. And if Aereo is going to be charging customers to be able to distribute our content, they should be, they have a legal obligation, in our opinion, to pay the creators of that content.
Well, we'll see if you can convince the federal courts of that too.
Yep.
Speaking of the courts, we have another one, this Hopper. Sticking with you, Brian, I think you have a tougher case there. I think the broadcasters have a tougher case there because it is a consumer device, and it's just sort of a souped-up DVR, right? Are you going to win that case? And if
no,
you don't,
look,
what's
I
going
think,
to happen?
you
I mean,
know,
that sounds like a killer too.
Every company will look at that differently. I think that's a conversation between broadcast companies and Dish. And whether that comes up through our retransmission negotiations or in some other forum, is it legally appropriate? Perhaps. Is it the right thing? You know, again, we create a lot of value for our advertisers, and if people are going to circumvent that process, you know, that's going to jeopardize our desire to have business relationships with those folks.
So you're saying retrans time is the time to like put that paragraph in there? And
I'm saying that's probably one of the times we'd be engaged in a conversation with them about that.
Brian hit it right on the nail on the head. It's
Totally.
a business
Yep.
conversation.
Yeah, it is a business conversation.
It's a tough negotiator, that Charlie Ergen. It gives him another chip in the game, right?
Well, the point
We've
is,
got valuable content.
That's right. My guess is that none of you want to give back your spectrum or sell it back to the the FCC so they can auction it off to the wireless guys. Are you sure about that? Have you done the arithmetic? Do you know what your spectrum is worth? Brian?
Sure, we've run the models. The one thing I would tell you is, Scripps is a 130-year-old media company, and we take pretty seriously our commitment to serve communities and make communities better. And by selling back your spectrum, you're out. And
Well, you're not out, are you? I mean, you could continue. You're giving up what, 10 or 15% of your over-the-air audience, right? I mean, couldn't you continue to be in business as a sort of a local cable network?
Well, I think if you sell back all your spectrum, you probably are out, and that's the way we look at it. And I think we are committed to being broadcasting. We're in it for the long haul. We're in 13 great dynamic markets, and so I expect we'll be there for the long haul.
This might sound like a stupid question, but if it's only 10 or 15% of the audience, and that spectrum in a Detroit or Cleveland is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, you still think you have to have that over-the-air signal just for that?
Well, I think it goes beyond what we do with it as it relates to broadcasting. We need our spectrum to be able to innovate. We need our spectrum to be able to do mobile. I think that, we've built up business models around the delivery of data and what we can, push through data. I think we have a long, very successful business model long term, but it starts and ends with spectrum. And if we don't have spectrum, we're a cable channel.
Well, some of those cable channels are very, very valuable. Any thoughts, either you two?
Well, I'll pile on with what Brian said, because we resemble each other in a lot of different ways, but a lot of other legacy broadcasters too. And we're 115 years old, and I think there's an altruistic call here to keep the Fifth Estate alive. And we think that's a very important part of community service, to shine a light and do great investigative reporting and be in a position to be innovative with technology. A couple years ago, the buzz at CES was 3D. Now it's 4K, which has taken HD TV to the next level. And I'll tell you, it is eye candy. When you look at it, you go, wow. And you don't need too many imagination leaps to say, wonder what our television stations would look like if they were armed with 4K and we're pumping out that kind of product. So
let me stop you there. You were at CES. You saw how pretty those 4K pictures were. And I think you also mentioned ATSC is looking at a new standard. Do you see broadcasting going to they just adopted this new one just, what, 4 years ago, 2009? Do you see the industry moving to a new standard so they could broadcast 4K?
Well, I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, right now, and I think my colleagues would agree with me, we're not even doing HD acquisition in the field for our news operations. We do HD with our primetime lineup. Many of our syndicated shows, our sets are shot in HD. If I look at 4K right now, today, with my imagination, I see it being absolutely killer for sports events and some special theatrics. But the rest of the broadcast day, I don't know. But that's how HD started too, as far as in the mind's eye, and then technology takes over, years click by, and my gosh, you've got surround sound and all the rest, and you have really this robust viewing experience that is so much different from the Peacock opening for the beginning of Walt Disney in color, like some people in the room probably still remember. I do. So I think an enriched viewing experience is going to be a continuation, continue iterations, Harry, of what the television experience is all about. And we have zero interest in giving up our spectrum, and want to be bullish on opportunities that will be afforded us as compression continues to happen, which hopefully allows us to be more flexible and more nimble, and different options become available. If it's more bandwidth to do 4K, possibly, or there's data information that we can run.
Well, the other half of that fork or the spectrum incentive auction question is the repacking question. And Deb, how concerned are you or the other broadcasters about? Well, some broadcasters are going to give up spectrum. FCC is going to come in. They're going to reorganize the band. How confident are you that you're not going to get screwed in the end? That your signal is going to be degraded in the process?
We're very concerned about that. We went through that with HD. You had markets where there were numerous signals on top of one another, and the division of that when we were going to the HD signal hurt some stations, some markets, and so that does concern us. I think that we're on the edge of the mobile world right now, and we're not totally sure as to what that means and how much bandwidth we're going to need, what those options are out there. We think that our bandwidth has a lot of value, that we can provide some of the services possibly down the road that the wireless companies are providing, and we're not, they're being explored right now. We're looking at what direction that's going to go, and if we can go down that road, it'll be much more economical. I mean, there's opportunities there. And so we don't want to give that up. Plus, we're using our bandwidth now. I mean, if you're CBS and you're in sports, you're using the entire bandwidth, to get that sports experience. And when you're on a compressed cable system and you're getting, that.
It's not 1080i.
Yeah,
Right.
You're not getting that signal. It's stopping on you. That's because there's not enough bandwidth going through it.
We had a story this week that they're using the 4K and the super slow-mo for the production. So in the Super Bowl, you're going to see this technology used on the production side where they really slow it down and they can zoom in on the actual video to show you if he was in bounds or out of bounds in the big play. So it's something to watch for during the Super Bowl this year. But let's talk a little bit about programming, because this is a programming convention after all. There is a trend afoot in the broadcasting business where some of the groups, Raycom Media, Cox, Scripps, are getting involved in creating their own programming, not local programming, but original programs which may have legs, which may be able to be distributed nationally. Let's see, Scripps has replaced this was sort of a bold move. Scripps replaced Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy with its own homegrown Let's Ask America in the list. Cox has joined Raycom and Scripps on another project right this minute. And Raycom has developed America Now, is trying to syndicate that through Trifecta. So, Brian, tell us about this experiment where you're dropping, and this is almost all your markets, right? All your ABC stations?
Yeah, well, it was a decision, I guess, 3 years ago that we were looking at the economics of Wheel and Jeopardy and legacy shows that have been around a long time. Don't skew all that young. You don't get on too many 18 to 34, 18 to 49 buys with Wheel and Jeopardy. And we just, ultimately felt like for what we were paying versus, what we were bringing in, there was a better business model. And so you make a decision, okay, we're going to get out of Wheel and Jeopardy. What's your options? You can, go and bid on the best syndicated product that's already in access in the market, but all you're doing is driving up the prices of the market, and then ultimately you're probably down to a less than favorable ROI again. Or you can go and pick up the stuff that's not cleared in access in your market, but there's probably a reason why it's not cleared in your market. Or you can develop your own. And at Scripps, we're the company that started HGTV. We didn't buy that or stumble onto it. We started it from scratch. And so it's still, we still have some of that program creation in our DNA. And we decided to take a giant risk and went on a 2-year journey. Bob Sullivan's in the office, in the audience here, and he's our head of content. And him and Cater Lee, spent a lot of time on the West Coast and meeting with people and really trying to find the best ideas. And we ultimately launched a magazine show for a half hour of access, and then we partnered with Warner Brothers on a game show. And look, it's been a wild journey, and it launched last September. We didn't know how it was, we thought we'd developed some good shows, but I jotted down a couple of numbers, and the list, which is our magazine program in January, right now, 3/4 of the way through January, is 1 share point behind what we did a year ago in Wheel in Women 25-54. And that's homegrown, produced exclusively by us, running in 6 of our markets. Let's Ask America, which is the game show, was voted as the #1 new game show in America in 2012. In November sweeps, on a household basis, Let's Ask America did a 2.3. Extra did a 2.6, Insider did a 2.7, and Millionaire did a 2.7. So right out of the gate, even against established brands that have been around forever, we are very competitive and in the game. We're skewing younger than we ever had with Real and Jeopardy. We're getting on buys we hadn't gone on before. So we're actually very excited about the level of success. Just last night on Friday, I guess in Tampa, on Women 25-54, we did a 1.96, and the only show to beat us in the market was Big Bang with a 2.04, so 5/100ths behind.
With which one?
In Tampa with Let's Ask America.
Okay.
On Thursday, it did a 2.9 Women 25-54 in Tampa, a top 20 market. So we're really excited about the product we've created and the momentum we have.
Bill, are you going to get deeper into this business?
Well, similar to Brian, it's not new to our DNA either. You go back a couple years, but Operation Primetime was something that our company got together to give standalone indies quality primetime shows. We modeled a lot of John Jake novels into making those mini-series. We did Solid Gold, Entertainment Tonight.
You guys did Solid Gold.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Took that off the air?
Sorry. But so we've been dabbling in this, and everybody's got a different point of view on this. Us personally, we really applaud what's going on with Brian and his company. We love our syndicator friends that are here. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is it's healthy if there was a large amount of experimentation going on to find what the next best thing is. And Brian and I have been very encouraged about the path that we're working on together with Right This Minute. It's a little bit different, but it cues in on the YouTube video thirst that a lot of the millennials have. And we're drawing upon our news expertise about how to stack the shows, how to tease the different segments, and make it to be a compelling hour. And we're both proud that the show as it stands today is a lot better than it was a year ago, and the numbers stand up and support that, and so does the research. So,
well, and you saw the announcement today that MGM is going to be syndicated around the rest of the country.
All right, we'll see.
Yep.
Well, okay, Deb.
Bullish on the
I'd like
subject.
to tell you, since we haven't produced anything, we're a smaller company, and I also applaud this because right now there isn't a lot of product out there, and particularly in access and early fringe, there's not as many shows coming out. So I applaud that, and I hope it keeps growing and that we have an opportunity.
Well, and our goal is not to create all of our own programming and walk away from syndication. Syndication is a really valuable part of our business model. We were just in a position where we knew Wheel and Jeopardy weren't working for us anymore, and quite frankly, the only logical business decision was to create our own. But we've partnered with Warner Brothers on Let's Ask America, and we continue to be good partners with them on a lot of other programming. And so finding that right model, and look, I don't think it's a bad thing. People create some new, fun, unique entertainment ideas. Again, to Deb's point, it's the same 20 shows in access in every market in America. So coming up with some just new level of creativity, I think is a good thing for the industry.
So you would fully expect to see more of this from Raycom, Cox, Scripps, and maybe others?
I don't want to speak for others, but we're pleased with the success we're having so far.
Okay. We have about 5 or 6 minutes. Do we have any questions? Anybody want to see what is going to happen next in broadcasting? See any movement out there?
Can't see.
I'm sorry?
They're all asleep.
They're all asleep. Wake up. Oh, well, the other, okay.
It was the retrans conversation.
Authentication of the MSO, so you've got all the cable channels, your local TV, and then like live streaming authenticating through a mobile device.
Not sure what do you mean by authenticating through a mobile device?
So TV everywhere. The
Oh.
ability to really know your user through the cable.
Well, if this is the question, has that ever come up in retrans negotiations? Has anybody brought up, well, do you want us to offer this on a TV everywhere platform? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
broadcast on a TV Everywhere platform? Has that ever come up?
I think that's more of the conversations moving forward. I think it was about technology, and the other part of it for us is the importance of measurement. You know, look, I think we all, I don't want to speak for them, have an open mind that, you know, we're more valuable than ever, that we're putting our product in front of people where they are now away from a television, you know, where they would not normally be exposed to us. But for us to be able to monetize that through our, you know, with our advertisers, we've got to know who's watching and how often they're watching. And so, you know, it's a little bit, again, back to that chicken and egg thing. We've got to get the measurement part down on all of those platforms, and then I think we'll be able to monetize it.
It has come up in some negotiations we've had, and the concern that you have to take a look at is, where's the business model? If we're gonna do that, you know, what's our business model? The measurement, is there, you know, what's the result going to be for us as a broadcaster if we give up that give up that right? So and we don't own rights to everything we have. So you have the network involved and other.
Those darn networks, they're always getting in the way.
Well,
of our
syndicators,
business.
you've got NFL,
Well,
you're running NFL on your news. That's not, you can't clear that to go onto another platform or through another platform.
When people think of broadcasting and programming, they think of news. And, you know, I see these reports coming out of Hofstra University every year where they survey stations. It seems like we've, amazingly to some people, is the amount of news keeps going up and up and up. Have we maxed out on news at stations? We're starting in a lot of markets at 4:30 and we're going 5 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, right? In,
9.5 hours a day.
San Francisco. How much further can we go? We talked about Jim Rogers here or not here, but in Las Vegas. He's going to almost do a 24-hour news. Where does it end?
Well, I think it's a business model, and when you take a look at a market and you say, you know, can I garner an audience at 4 o'clock? Are there other players in the market? How much you know, is the business model? And when you look at the pie that comes into the market, the advertising pie for news, am I going to get enough of that pie? Am I going to get more of that pie, or is it just going to spread my news revenue around? So it's really taking a look at each market, understanding what your business model is, and whether you think you can be successful with it.
I would say from Cox's perspective, we want to do as much news as we possibly can. What we love about morning exploration is that it's the time period, if you go 4:30, Brian, to 9 a.m. or to 7 a.m., cable or other viewing is less of a threat in that day part than ever before. So before you expand, are you a big enough market that there's news to talk about? Right. And before you make that commitment, are you in a market where they like TV? And if you do a news, will they watch? And if the answer comes back that there's enough news to make it a vibrant experience, people like TV, our opinion is we should be doing as much news as we possibly can. And that doesn't mean 24/7, but it means going on at 4:30, and it means having a strong commitment to weekend news in the AM slots. You get a lot of breaking news that happens on the weekend, and we feel like we should have a presence there.
Well, look, Brian, if the news end of it is going to get bigger, and you're going to create some of your more of your own programming,
there's room for hits, Harry.
There's always room for hits. You saw where I was going. Doesn't it push out the syndicators a little bit? I mean, eventually it's pushing them out between news and your own homegrown stuff.
Yeah, I guess it could. Look, I think at the end of the day, the audience will tell you when they've had enough news. And so I don't think any of us aspire to, you know, having, 24/7 news across all of our stations. There's the appropriate balance, and syndicators and unique local programming play an important part in that balance.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Bill hit it on the head. A hit is a hit. You'll take it where you can get it, right?
Yeah.
All right, look, unless somebody wants the last question, I'm going to call a recess here.
There's one in the back, Harry. I think underneath the shiny light.
Go ahead. I cannot see.
Yeah, how do you feel? How do you feel about in original programming in deal making in the business model? This Debmar Mercury formula is going to affect your costs and the overall future down the line.
What is the Debmar Mercury, where they test out these
Like anger
shows?
management, it's a 10, the 1090 deal with, a rating fixed market that would either pick up after the initial 10. You're not familiar with that?
Well, yeah, I am familiar with it, but I mean, that's just like any other syndication deal. I mean, if they, you guys, I don't know how deeply you're in the off-net programming business.
Yeah, well, as I understand it, actually it's a fixed cost after the first 10, right, for 90 out. But then you got to pick up the whole 90. So, I don't know how that affects original program.
Well, you guys aren't in the market for anger management or off-network shows?
No, okay, I think, we would encourage people to try some different, creative ideas that allow us to sample some programming and see if there's an audience there. That's not something yet that we have engaged in, but it may be right for other partners or other, broadcasters, and we'll keep an eye on it and see if it creates a new, unique, business model for us.
But what you're doing is sort of an outgrowth of what Mort and I were doing at Debmar Mercury, which is starting small, do it in a few markets, try to get some traction, and then take it nationally. It's the same sort of model anyway. Okay, I am going to call for a recess, and please join us in the back of the hall for refreshments, and thank my panel here.